Welcome into Talking Sports with JP, the Week 3 wrap-up. Question, who made some money off of my upset bet of the week? Nobody has to say it out loud, but I do expect you to share my content with your friends. Maybe they can make some money and I can grow my audience. My top 3 stories for the week, 20. 20 is a magical number for 2 teams in the SEC East. 20 wins in a row for the still undefeated and reigning national champion Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia sure made it look as if that streak was going to come to an end in the first half. That's 10 straight wins and 20 years in a row for the Gators over the Vols at home. There's nothing like home cooking when it comes to a rival game, and there's something special about the Swamp at night. It's just magical. Just goes to show exactly how hard it is to win in the SEC on the road. Joe Milton had his worst game of the season with a 58.8% completions, 2 touchdowns and 1 pick, and the run game was held to 100 yards. Number 2 is the Colorado Buffaloes. They are front and center in the spotlight from week 1 to this past week on game day. I really like what Coach Prime is doing and how he's changing the culture in a program that was all but forgotten. But I'm not sold on if they can win when they go up against what is currently ranked 6 teams in the top 25 when it comes to their Pac-12 schedule. A double overtime win despite the penalties or in lack of the penalties, whichever way you want to look at it. You beat Colorado State by 8 points, and you were favored by 23.5. This is the same Colorado State that was drummed by Michigan State, or by Washington State, 50-24. But even if they lose all 6 of those ranked matchups, I expect them to go bowling and finish the year with a winning record. My third story, and this one is going to cost me some of my friends. I don't hide. I don't like to talk smack. And I tell it how I see it. What is going on in Tuscaloosa? This is the first time in 128 weeks that the Tide is not in the AP Top 10. They still hold the longest streak for being ranked, 249 straight weeks. But like I said last week, that this team, the way it looks currently, is a 4-loss team. And that's in my eyes. That's my opinion. You can have your own opinion. But if that's the case, that streak could come to an end as well. I still don't think the dynasty is dead, nor do I believe that the game is done with Nick. But is Coach Saban done with the game? Just food for thought. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, let's get into my top 7 and how they did this past weekend. At the end of the day, Georgia extended its win streak to 20 wins in a row. But at halftime, they had their largest deficit in nearly 3 years, as they were trailing the Gamecocks by 11. The first half was as if neither side of the ball was ready to play. That vaunted defense allowed Spencer Rattler all the time he needed to throw for 152 yards and a score. The second half, Rattler threw for 104 yards, and he had 2 picks without a touchdown. I said in the preview that they couldn't afford to let South Carolina get out to a fast start. I guess that 14-3 lead at the half was not fast enough. Dejon Edwards saw his first action of the year due to a knee injury. Edwards had 118 yards, leading all ball carriers and a touchdown on 20 carries. Carson Beck is still struggling to find the end zone with 0 touchdowns on Saturday. He completed just over 77% of his throws, going 27 of 35, 269 yards, and was sacked twice. Kirby Smart was quoted as saying he was excited at halftime because, quote, "I knew we would find out what kind of team we have." Did we ever? The Dogs took a second half kickoff, 75 yards in just 6 plays to score their first touchdown of the day. with Edwards getting his first rushing score of the season. The run game got the boost it was missing in the first two games with his return. The kicking game was off as compared to past seasons for the Dogs. Peyton Woodring was just 3 of 6 so far. Is just 3 of 6 so far on the season, including a missed 28 and 43-yard attempt Saturday. He did hit a 31-yarder in the first quarter. Just a week ago, I was singing J.J. McCarthy's praises. Then he goes out against Bowling Green and lays an egg. 8 of 13. 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, he almost completed as many passes to the Falcons with 3 picks on the night. Blake Corum led the way for the Wolverines, 12 carries, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns, with a 54-yard carry on the first offensive snap of the game. Michigan had 3 turnovers in the first half, but in the second, the Falcons returned that favor, turning the ball over 2 times in 3 snaps, setting up for a 17-point third quarter for Michigan, thanks to a 1-play 2-yard touchdown run and a 4-play 42-yard field goal. That win makes 28 of the last 31 for the Wolverines and 18 straight at home. McCarthy struggled throwing the ball. He was trying to make things happen, and as a result, a poor performance. A poor performance that would need to be addressed this week, as they have undefeated Rutgers coming into town next weekend, making it 4 straight in the Big House to open the season. A win is a win at the end of the day. But way to put a scare into your fan base there, Knowles. The Seminoles found themselves down early 10-3 about midway through the second quarter before scoring their first touchdown of the day to tie the game. With less than 2 minutes in the half, the Noles took their first lead of the game 17-10 at the half. FSU would hold the lead for the win, but they did their best to let it slip away, going up as much as 21 but only winning by 2 points. Jordan Travis played well, 15-24, 212 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The run game combined for a total of 128 yards and 2 scores. The Seminoles were plagued with the fumble ball, 3 in the game with 2 of them lost. The defense must have stayed in Tallahassee as they gave up 305 yards in the air and 152 on the ground. They did have 1 interception and 2 sacks. After winning their first 2 games of the year by a combined 74 points, this win leaves Noles fans scratching their head, especially heading into Death Valley next week to take on the Clemson Tigers, who are 2-1 and are starting to catch fire on offense, scoring 48 and 66 points the last 2 weeks after their Week 1 7-point performance. Beating Alabama is an accomplishment. Doing it in Bryant-Denny is nearly impossible. I wondered if this was going to cause a hangover for the Longhorns this week versus the Wyoming Cowboys. The Cowboys took the opening kick and went 75 yards for a touchdown, doing it in style with a 62-yard run. Practically untouched freshman Harrison Whaley started the night off with a bang. The first half, that consisted of 4 punts, 1 touchdown, and 1 field goal, as the number 4 team in the nation doesn't cut it. This Texas team is ranked its highest ranking it's seen in over 14 years, and playing like crap against a team that's never beaten a top 10 team is shaky looking at best. At the end of the third, the score was tied at 10. But as things would be, Texas put up 21 points in the fourth to make the scoreboard look a little more like what it should at the end. One of the scores came on a 27-yard pick six. Oh yeah, Texas also fumbled the ball on their last drive of the game. At the end of the day, it was a poor offensive performance. Quinn Ewers was 11 of 21, 131 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns, and the team rushed for 185 yards. The defense gave up a total of 291 yards, but was on the field all night as the Cowboys held a 38-plus minute to 21-plus minute time of possession. Wyoming is no longer perfect in the red zone. They entered it twice. They got one field goal, and on the last drive of the game, the clock hit 0. I'm not sure exactly how that goes down in the books, but in my book, I'm considered it a failed attempt in the end zone because they could have kicked a field goal because 7 or 3 in a losing effort, it didn't matter if you were going to score either or because you were still going to lose that game. SC had their bye week. Rest and recoup. Get ready for next week. Take it easy and watch everyone else beat themselves up. I said in the preview that this week would be the Buckeyes' breakout offensive performance, and was I right? 562 total yards, 358 in the air, and 204 on the ground. 7 touchdowns. Kyle McCord was 19 of 23, 318 yards, and 3 touchdowns with a 95.7 QBR. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 5 catches, 126 yards, and 1 touchdown. In the second quarter, the Hilltoppers pulled to within 4 when McCord connected with Harrison for a one-play, 75-yard strike to go up 11 and never look back. This, after a week ago, a 71-yard connection between the two. I said there needed to be some extra route running there to get that connection back, and boy, does it look like they got that going. Travion Henderson carried the ball 13 times for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. A very balanced offensive effort by the Buckeyes. The defense played well like always. 2 picks, 2 sacks. One of the picks was a pick 6 and recovered 2 fumbles, allowing a total of 284 yards and 1 each touchdown and field goal. Overall, strong performance from the Buckeyes, something that's going to be needed heading to South Bend next week. We're 1 for 1 for Big Ten East quarterbacks playing well on Saturday. Now, Drew Allar's turn, and I would have said before this that he was ahead of Ohio State's Kyle McCord until now. He didn't play well at all. Well, I said it for JJ, so I have to say it for Drew. He laid an egg himself. Aller was 16 of 33, 208 yards, and that was it. His QBR on the night was 66.6, but his running back, Trey Potts, had a 100 QBR rating, going 1 for 1 with a touchdown. His bright spot of the night since he carried the ball 1 time for 2 yards. The defense played lights out with 3 sacks, 4 picks, and 1 fumble recovered. There was a total of 12 punts for both teams, and each team missed a field goal. Penn State has now scored 30 or more points in 10 straight games, the longest streak in the country. For my first 2 out, Notre Dame did what was expected of them, beating Central Michigan 41-17. Sam Hartman was 16 of 26, 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. The run game was led by Audric Esteem, 20 carries, 176 yards, and a score. 236 total on the night for the Fighting Irish on the ground. The defense had 2 sacks and held the Chippewas to 268 total yards. Up next for them is the game of the week as they host the Ohio State Buckeyes. Washington outscored Michigan State 14-0 in the first quarter, on the way to a 41-7 beatdown of the Spartans on their home field. I've talked Caleb Williams up all season long for his 3 outstanding performances, but it's about time to put Michael Penix Jr.'s name at the top of the list for the Heisman talk along with him. He's number 1 in passing yards, number 1 in total QBR, and number 2 in passing touchdowns, only trailing Sam Hartman, who has played 1 more game. The run game has been overshadowed, and justifiably, but they put up 177 yards and a score on Saturday, balancing out the offense. Well, at least making it so you don't just totally blow the run game off, which will be needed as they head into Pac-12 play this week. Thanks for tuning in for my Week 3 wrap-up. Come back later this week as I preview Week 4. Should be the most exciting weekend of the season to date as we have 6 AP Top 25 matchups. I'll touch on each game and give you my thoughts of what's going to go down. You won't want to miss it. As always, you can find me on all social media at JP21Sports. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell here on YouTube for notifications. And I'll see you next time.